You. Good afternoon, Georgia. You made it. You're here last session. Congratulations. You can give yourself a round of applause as well. Just a trick to keep you guys awake for another 30 minutes. But what a powerhouse throughout the day. I don't know about you guys, but this has felt like a masterclass. And to Chris and the team at the Chamber, year two, last year felt like a tension of complexity that this topic was just injecting in an already complicated and accelerating world, pace of change. This year, it just feels like, throw it into the kitchen and let's figure out what we're going to implement. And I love setting the stage at the state level around competitive advantage in this theme. So it's been a great day. State level, the different industries grappling with it. It's not easy, as we were saying, and kind of to land at the firm level, and especially sharing the stage here with a couple powerhouses of privately held businesses based here in Georgia. Really appreciate the time. And that's where we're going to end up. So stick with us for 28 more minutes. We're going to ask these two to go through their journey, give us a present state at their company, the strategies that they've deployed, they've mobilized, maybe take a baby step back, figure out where what started them on this journey, and then figure out what were the lens to the future, and let you guys go to that networking reception. But Bo, maybe we'll start with you. Can you give us a sense of your role, your effort, maybe set the stage for Southwire here in this conversation?
Thank you, appreciate the opportunity. So, Bo Quick, VP of Corporate Sustainability at Southwire. And whenever we have a conversation like this, I always like to talk about how we define sustainability. Years ago, sustainability was synonymous with environmental performance, right? And that's where we were. And in the 2008 timeframe, we formalized a more, broad definition, a broad scope of sustainability. So we have 5 tenets. So growing green is definitely the environmental component. We think about living well too. That's the people piece. We want to build a inclusive, safe environment for our employees. Giving back is about the community. We want to be a positive force for the community. We want to do right. So doing right is our tenet around ethical performance. And then the last one is the building worth piece. We want to provide value for all stakeholders. So us as employees, our ownership, our customers, suppliers, the community, and all that. So that's kind of where we are on that, if you want to call it a maturity continuum. We're moving from the program, hey, sustainability is a program over here, but we want to integrate it into the business, and that's where it's providing real value for the business.
Appreciate that, Bo. Meredith?
Hey there, everybody. I'm Meredith Lindvall. I'm the Senior Director of Recycling and Waste Diversion at Cox Enterprises. And a little bit about Cox Enterprises, because I want to let you know about the broad businesses that we're in, so that when we talk about the goals and the work that we're doing, you'll have a little bit of context. So Cox Enterprises is the parent company of Cox Communications, the 3rd largest telecommunications business. There's actually a cable market here in Macon. And then there's Cox Automotive. So it has a bunch of brands that you are actually probably familiar with. So Auto Trader and Kelley Blue Book and Mannheim and a lot of other things in the automotive space. And then recently with some new exciting news that includes exciting businesses like Cox Farms, which are greenhouse agriculture. So a lot of different lines of business, which makes sustainability a really fascinating problem to solve. And it's funny that you say 2008 for your all journeys, because that really aligns actually with Cox Conserves. That's our sustainability department. We really came to formalize our sustainability initiatives in 2007. So we're sharing a track on that. And it was really our chairman emeritus, Jim Kennedy, actually came to the department at the time and said, you know what, I want my legacy to be environmental stewardship. So as far as remit and buy-in from the top, that really has set us off on what are some really exciting goals. And so we have carbon and water goals as well, but I'm really excited to talk to you all today about waste. So I feel like you're definitely going to be bought in for the next 25 minutes. Everyone wants to talk about trash.
Fair enough. So we've heard from a spectrum today. I mean, there's some folks here, some organizations that have declared their net zero strategy, some that are sustainability curious, and everything in between. You've talked about, you're going on almost decade 2 with your initiatives. Can you kind of highlight where you sit in 2024 with those strategies and kind of the big ticket initiatives you guys have out in play right now?
Sure, absolutely. So for 10 years, I've been able to say I lead the terrifying goal of achieving zero waste to landfill by 2024. And I am really excited to share with you all today that Cox Enterprises is the first U.S.-based service company to be recognized as a zero waste business with Zero Waste USA. And we've also had that progress third-party verified by Green Circle Certified.
Fair enough. Congratulations. Big bar, Bo. Same question.
So I'm going to stay away from the environmental space because we have been focused on that today and mentioned two things. One is on the doing right tenet for ours. We set an objective several years ago to be recognized by Ethisphere on their list of world's most ethical companies by 2025. And we hit that a year early, and we're one of 136 companies worldwide to hit that. So we're very proud of that accomplishment. And the second thing I'll mention, and this is kind of echoing some of the conversations earlier, this is a longer term initiative in our giving back space. To work at Southwire in the plant, you have to have a high school diploma or equivalent. And a number of years ago, our leadership looked around the community and said, you know what, the graduation rates in the high school systems around our main campus are not that great. So our population of potential workforce is shrinking. How do we help impact that? And our folks connected with the local school systems to come up with some concepts, and collectively they came up with what we call 12 for Life. And it's basically a dual enrollment type program. So kids who are recognized by the school system as being at risk of dropping out, they're encouraged to apply for the program. Once they get into the program, they come to our facility. It's a manufacturing site. It's, I would say, a less heavy than our normal manufacturing sites, but they're in the building all day long, half a day in class with folks from the school system, and the other half of the day they're on the floor doing work. So they're working on their education, they're earning some money, working on some job skills. They're also paired with a Southwire mentor to build some life skills. So at the end of the day, when they graduate from the program, they're ideally a productive member of society. And many of these kids have come to work for us for sure, but a lot of them go on to the general workforce, the military, college, whatever. So it's been over the last 17 years, I think we've graduated more than 3,000 kids. So big impact for the company.
I appreciate both of these stories, and I love kind of the operational lens to both. Maybe the same question to both of you, but Bo, maybe you could bring us inside some of your leadership team meetings to kind of mobilize this grandiose vision of workforce development, waste minimization in your case. What kind of alignment did you have? What drove the alignment? What kind of resistance and inertia did you have to overcome? Can you kind of get us back to starting some of those conversations, some of those lessons learned for implementation for some of these folks that are doing something similar?
Yeah, I think for us, again, environmental was that original focus, and it was because we had a history of not so great performance we needed to work on, right? So that was the genesis of it, and as the company matured, the leadership's perspective matured, they broadened that scope. But one of the advantages of being a family-owned company is that our ownership is 5 people. They can say, you know what, we want to have an impact in our communities, and they're willing to make that commitment, not just the short term, but the longer term commitment. So for us, that's very impactful. And our ownership, 3 of those folks are on our board every day. One of them chairs the sustainability committee of our board, so she's there. And the other 2, even though they're not on the committee, they sit in on the calls anyway. So they're all involved, and we know exactly what their level of interest is, what their concerns are. So we have that, and our leadership takes that to heart.
Fair enough. Thank you.
And on our side, when we set this goal, we had no baseline. We set a goal with just, hey, we're shooting for the stars. We're shooting for zero waste by 2024. Where are we? So what we found was digging into this is that we started this journey with a 9% diversion rate. And so in 10 years to go from 9 to zero waste takes a lot of buy-in from the top, which we talked a little bit about just at the beginning. But we really overcame 3 big barriers as we went on this 10-year journey, and it was really important that our leadership understood those. And I'll walk you through some of those milestones because I think 10 years is actually really fast. So 3 big things that we overcame, and with full support from our leadership, is first, access to recycling. So when we started this, we had no data. We didn't know where we were. So we finally got information and said we have a 9% diversion rate. And then we went out on the task of actually providing employees access to recycling. So in 10 years, that looks like launching over 100,000 recycling bins just within Cox locations. And so that's, again, with that buy-in from our leadership, because Cox is in something like over 48 states. So we're talking about hundreds of locations across the country as we do this. And then the next big challenge that we had to solve was materials. You heard a little bit about in some of the other sessions, Cox has really unique materials. So actually only about 40% of what a Cox employee touches goes in those blue recycling bins that we launched 100,000 of nationwide. So that next phase was tackling things that are really unique. So at our automotive business, that looks like solving for over 200,000 windshields. And at our cable business, that looks like solving in pre-competitive environments with others in this space for a really big challenge, coax recycling. And so I'm excited to share that through those efforts, they recycled over 100,000 pounds of coax cable in 10 years. So all of those things are happening with buy-in, not just actually from the enterprise leadership, but from the buy-in of each of the Cox businesses as well. And that third bucket is actually the hardest one. And it's how do we make sustainability business as usual? And that's really where we are 10 years into this journey, is that through leadership buy-in across the business and at every level, every Cox employee from the front line all the way to the C-suite asks themselves my favorite question. When they hold something in their hand, they say, when I throw it away, where is away? And you'll hear that across the Cox businesses, everywhere from a cable installer to an auto technician to anywhere, even in our boardroom. That is our question for the last 10 years. When you throw something away, where is away?
Fair enough. Thanks, Meredith. I'd love to unpack that. So you've got the 3 major initiatives that you guys have in play. What's the process of establishing those priorities since 2007?
Absolutely. So I've heard a lot about this today. Data is definitely the way that we make these types of decisions. We are actually a really data-driven team. And what that looks like is it's hard to get data in the waste space. So we've put a lot of investment, again, to that leadership buy-in in bringing transparency to the data space. So there's a couple different ways that we've approached that. So first and foremost is we do a lot of what we call waste characterizations. It's the materials version of doing an energy audit. So it's trying to understand all of the things that you have and then actually putting those into a level of priority and chipping away at those. And so a little bit about what that might look like is, I'll give you an example for an office space, is we did a profile of offices and said, you know what, 32%, 10 years ago, 32% of what Cox employees put in the trash is just regular old paper. So then you can actually partner with your leadership teams and your communication teams to make this digestible and so that your employees can realize those milestones of success. One of the things that we learned really early on is when you have these types of goals, so net zero goals or zero waste goals, you can't wait to celebrate at the end. That's really not something that keeps your leadership team motivated. It doesn't keep your employees motivated, your vendors, your value chain. So using that data to really build a roadmap of what we're going to tackle not only allows you to celebrate success within your organization, it also gives you that business proposition for those that you want to bring on the journey with you. So when I say that, I'm thinking a lot about value chain partners. So going to folks to say, hey, you might be surprised to find out that X% of what we have to tackle is actually something that we can work on together. I'll give you the windshield one again, because that's something that folks understand and makes sense. But we did the same thing with bumpers and all these other things to say, hey, this is a challenge that Cox Enterprises is interested in solving. Are you interested in coming on the journey with us? And by the way, if we can solve this together and do something that's never been done before, here's how much progress we make on our goal. And O, do you have sustainability goals that you want to join us in our commitment to a more sustainable future on? So that data piece is really, really key for how you plan out your programs, how you communicate to your leadership, and ultimately at the end of the day, what you prioritize on communicating both downstream and upstream. But giving that feedback is really, really, really helpful.
Love it, and I'd love to return back to these partner engagement conversations in a minute. Bo, how about you? What about Southwire internal conversations about what can we do versus what we are going to do? What happened in between?
Yes, I think for us, we do a materiality assessment, right, to identify what are those top, say, 12, 15 things you want to tackle. And then to your point, you can't resource everything, right? We got a limited amount of resources, so we have to really make the value case. What's the value to the business for these 15 things we want to do, right? And some of that's going to be on the, the customer side or the talent attraction, retention side, or operational efficiency, cost saving side. What is our competition doing? We need to keep up with them. So if you can lay out the business case, that helps prioritize things, right? So what's the value of whatever it is we're trying to tackle, right? Is it going to provide, say, resilience in times of, power outage, or is this going to provide, some value to the community? It may not always be dollars and cents, but there may be some other value that we can quantify that helps prioritize the situation for us.
Yeah, fair enough. And I'd maybe circle back around to the topic Meredith introduced. Mobilizing partners when you're in a limited resource environment with a big audacious goal is going to be key if you're going to make material success early enough for people to keep going. How about you? Internal partners, clients as a partner, suppliers as a partner, upstream, downstream. How do you see that as critical to the efforts that you guys have going on right now?
Yeah, all of the above, right? So the sustainability team is like a handful of people, right? And 2 years ago, it was 2 people. So we get nothing done individually. We have to, have cross-functional teams. And I think for us, particularly say the last maybe 3 years, as the broader business sees the value of sustainability. So we're getting inquiries now from our sourcing folks, our commercial team, the R&D folks. Hey, I've got this idea. That's where we see that sustainability is really working, right? It's integrated into the business, and they see the value, the return on whatever it is they're looking for. So from that's what gets us excited. And we do the same thing externally, right? We don't have the leverage of an Apple or somebody like that, right? To get things done, we need to partner with others and get that critical mass that if we're all working together, we can get things done if we're moving in the right direction.
Fair enough. Meredith, you want to unpack partnership a little bit more?
Sure. And I'll share a little bit about our journey as well, because I think it's important to the partnerships. When we set this zero waste goal, I was a team of 1. I am excited to share that over time, the Cox Conserves Department has over 40 people working on sustainability. So we are really, really fortunate. But a lot of that legwork in the early days happened through amplification with partners. And I echo a lot of the groups that you touched on. So those are internal partners are really key. If you're a small team, how can you amplify what your focus is? And I have a couple things on that. One, I would suggest aligning with MBOs or other key initiatives that are happening around the company. The great thing that you all know about sustainability is it's often something you can dovetail with another business objective. So to give an example of that, when we did a records information secure document initiative, that actually tied into our zero waste goals, because paper is something that is a part of our zero waste to landfill journey. Or when we move to paperless billing, that is something that different groups across the organization are reaching out to us to say, hey, does this count for our sustainability goals? So the more that you can connect with people, make your singular message clear around what the metric of success is. So in our case, zero waste to landfill is defined by a rate. You can leverage a lot of internal partners to bring things to you, and you can partner with them to keep that movement going on the internal side. So look places that you might not have thought of before: accounts payable, supply chain, operations. And then as far as suppliers, that's a really key pillar. We have a 6-pillar strategy on achieving our zero waste to landfill goal, and suppliers have their own dedicated pillar. As you can imagine, working on some of those unique challenges that I mentioned for windshields and coax, cable recycling, and just doing things differently, suppliers have really come with us on this journey, and we've really said, hey, we've got this goal. We're not sure how we're going to get there, but we want you to be a part of it. But it hasn't just been on the technology front. A lot of it, again, to come back to data, is how do you get information on some of these types of initiatives? So if you can partner with your suppliers, not only in the solution itself, but really working with them on reporting, that's something that we've seen has been really successful. But it's a big lift for them. So giving that positive feedback on how they move the needle is going to be key. And then externally on that partnership side, one of the things that Cox Enterprises approaches sustainability is it's not just about what's doing right within our 4 walls, it's about making meaningful change in the communities where we live, work, and serve as well. So that recycling access that we talked about, we know that if it's a problem for Cox Enterprises employees to be able to put something in a recycling bin, it's a problem for our customers and our friends and our families out in the marketplace. So in the course of the 10 years, we have invested over $1.9 million in expanding recycling access and infrastructure in the United States, because it's not just about zero waste goal, right? That's just at Cox. It's really about changing the landscape for a more sustainable future. So partners like the Recycling Partnership here in Atlanta, Chattahoochee Riverkeeper, working with these types of nonprofit organizations to help you really drive that change out where you also are serving, because you can't solve this problem by yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to maybe wrap up in the last 5 minutes that we have together. Maybe talk about how your response function to your markets. How are they changing those client conversations? Is a little bit of a downstream conversation for both of you? I mean, you've got a huge spectrum of client sizes and types. Are you getting a forcing function that's pressuring your organizations to respond and up-level the game? Are you trying to stay ahead of it? How do you see the market evolving?
So we make electrical wire and cable, everything from stuff that's this big, that's stuff that's this fine, right? So the customer segments we have are quite varied. Some of them can't spell sustainability, and some of them are so far ahead of us that we're running to catch up. So it depends on who it is we're trying to serve as a customer. Also, we're in the EV space, EV charging space, renewables, grid modernization. Hopefully that'll happen. So there's a lot of things moving forward in what we do. I think there's some push-pull, right? There's some things we want to do, but we need the customer acceptance to be there. And there's always okay, great. How much does that cost? What's the premium on that? Or you'll give me that for the same price, right? So we've got to balance all those things. I think data centers is an example for a customer. That group is very focused on sustainability. They've got, carbon footprint goals of their own in terms of the materials that their centers are made out of. They've got heat issues to deal with. They've got water issues to deal with. And anything we can do to help support that helps us provide value to them. So that's a good example of where we can play and leverage sustainability to drive spec position, or maybe get some premium or market share, whatever it might be.
Appreciate that.
And on our side, things that are high on my radar of how we're flexing with demand is Cox actually has a goal to grow an entire suite of businesses that are all green to a $2 billion portfolio. So as I think about what the demand looks like coming from not only our legacy customers, again, in the auto space where there's a lot going on, and telecom space as well, there's a lot of exciting things that Cox is involved in that keep me really focused on the future of circularity. So we are squarely in the circular business, and as we think about how we might evolve, again, we've recently just achieved this huge milestone of zero waste, but right, that's a milestone in the journey. So we're in the process of thinking about what comes next. What's our exciting thing after zero waste? And for me, circularity is high on that list. Because a lot of the businesses that we have play in that space now. So again, Nexus Circular, who you all know, but also EV battery solutions as well. So 90% of an EV battery is recycled by this business in their process. And so how do we make goals that are supporting that type of customer and the goals that those green businesses have, but also continue to push the needle of what aggressive sustainability goals look like, again, as we make the last goal was for when we were largely a service-based company. And now we're moving into really exciting new frontiers. So circularity, I would say value chain partnerships are something that we are continuing to look at as we double down on making a difference, not just within our four walls. And then thinking about the future of materials management and how do we measure things that don't exist? How do we keep in the circularity game when we are tracking things and eliminating the use? What does that mean for our goal? What does that mean for reporting? And again, that partnership with suppliers is going to be really important to make something like that happen.
Yeah, that's actually the last question I'd love to unpack with you, Meredith, is that lens, the next 5, the next 10 years. You mentioned circularity. Maybe what are you doing now that may feather off of your strategy? What do you ramp up and scale more that you'd like, that's going to inform the next 10 years for you? And then what rides alongside circularity for Cox?
Sure, absolutely. So we are trying to figure out for zero waste, what does that mean as we get into these new spaces? So I'll be transparent with you. We're thinking about what's next. What does it look like when Cox is doing a lot of exciting growth in that farm space? So some of the things that we're thinking about that I've spoken to many of you all in the past, but as we move into new business sectors, we're squarely now going to be thinking about packaging and some of the other things that historically have been different for Cox. So we are thinking about circularity. We're thinking about what does it mean as the landscape changes globally for sustainability initiatives? Where do we look to? There's a lot of things that have been happening even in the United States where Cox is selling products. So we need to think about what do we change? What do we flex? But at the heart of it, I mean, our commitment to managing materials within our business is only going to grow. So tackling what do some of these problems and challenges look like at our new businesses. But again, coming up with something new. I mean, no service company had ever achieved zero waste before. So trying to think about what's the next thing that pushes the boundary, whether that's a positive goal or something else that really just moves the needle broader than our landscape, with a big focus on that value chain and really disrupting what sustainability goals might look like.
Yeah, it sounds like a lot of lever up the impact, kind of a mindset going on offense. How about you, Bo? You want to wrap us up?
Yeah, I would say 3 things. We talked a lot about workforce today. The lack of the appeal to the manufacturing sector, to those seeking a new job. That's a challenge for us. A lot's going to be going on in the how do we build that employee experience to be seen as an employer of choice, right? That's going to be a lot of focus for us. The energy transition, we're in that space, right? So a lot's going on there that will dictate what we make and what markets we serve. Those things may change over time. And then another one, technology. So AI, machine learning, digitalization, that'll affect the markets we serve more. So say, that increases the data centers tenfold in the next 10 years or whatever. That's going to impact us significantly, and it'll also impact how we make things, right? So how do we use technology? How do we lever technology? And whether that's the employees, the skill level we need, the technology we use in the plant. So I think those 3 things will impact us significantly over the next, short term and long term going forward.
Fair enough. Well, thank you both for sharing. This is, as I said, a continuation of the day. It's just felt like a long masterclass, extended masterclass of everyone grappling with these challenges and changes. So, Bo, Meredith, I appreciate the expertise.